Hello, everyone. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. It is listed here, KZA76-NBA Stats. And you can also find me on LinkedIn at linkedin.com/in/krudnick79. I am Kira Zahra Hassan, and it is June 16th, 2024. And I thought since we have game 5 of the NBA Finals tomorrow, it was about time to publish the analysis of the Western Conference Key Duos Phase 1 for the regular season. So let's get started. And I'm back with my fun laser pointer and my cute scarves. Hopefully, I like them. All right, so process summary of phase 1. This is going to be a lot shorter than my Eastern Conference video, which you can find on my channel. In the Eastern Conference video, I go into a lot of detail about the decisions on the data and also the background behind quartile analysis. So I'll make this brief since this is just the same thing for the Western Conference. But the cool thing is the findings were very different, which makes things interesting. So process summary. Basically, I'm using two custom created measures that identify the impact of the key duo for each team. And specifically, I want to see what share they have based on the total for the entire team to essentially see not the raw number, but how much of the load the duo is carrying for the team. So I've got the offensive production index, or OPI, which is simply points plus offensive rebounds plus assists minus turnovers. And then the defensive production index is just defensive rebounds plus blocks plus steals. And note that we are going to be using the per game data. So the per game data is important for several reasons. For one thing, it takes out the variable of games that were missed by the key duo during the season. So it's only for games played. And it also encompasses all players, even ones who have left the team. So this allows a measure of the true continuum of the entire regular season and all the variables that come with it. Now, later in phase 2, that's where I will add back some more variables to analyze, including how many games were missed by the duo, which are obviously going to have an effect on the regular season record. So the most important thing, I think, about using the share versus the totals is because this will neutralize the effect of overall changes to the game over time. And what I mean by that is that the trend in the NBA lately, if you're a fan, you've definitely noticed that there's a greater number of three-point shots being attempted in the past decade, a major greater number. And that's led, among other things, to a greater number of points averaged per game in recent seasons. So if we use the totals, we wouldn't really be able to compare current duos to duos of the past because all the measures would be skewed by the changes in the game. Moving on. And here we've got our Western Conference key duos list. And you can see it is in descending order of regular season winning percentage. So we've got our best teams up top and the not so great teams down at the bottom. The fun fact about our first key duo, Gilgeous-Alexander and Jalen Williams, who were on the top seeded team, the Thunder, there are actually two Jalen Williamses on the Thunder, which is why I had to put the first name spelling in there. Now, the immediate thing that jumped out to me when I looked at this table without doing any actual analysis yet is that there seems to be less of a clear pattern than there was in my Eastern Conference data, which makes things very interesting. So you can see that down here, we've got Vassell and Wembanyama. They've got quite a strong share right here, over 22. And they are a very not successful team this past season. They are close to last. So it seems like maybe, as I kind of scan these numbers, that the duo OPI share and DPI share are not going to have as much explanatory power over the results of the regular season as they did in the Eastern Conference. And here is the official analysis contrast with the Eastern Conference, exact same quartile analysis. And it did confirm what I'd suspected glancing at the data, that there is much less of a clear pattern in the Western Conference. In the Eastern Conference, all of our top teams are pretty much in the green and yellow shading, whereas in the Western Conference, We've got some orange shading. Even here, the Clippers have a winning record, 51% for the regular season, yet the OPI and DPI shares for their duo are both in the orange. So the dark green represents the maximum, and anything shaded green would be in that top quartile, meaning from the 75th percentile up to the maximum. The yellow represents the third quartile, which is from the median up to the 75th percentile. The orange represents the second quartile, which is going to be from the 25th percentile to the 50th. And then the red, the very dark red, of course, represents the minimum. And the red area is going to be from the minimum up to the 25th percentile. So in other words, anything that is not green or yellow is going to be below the median. And you can see that it did bear out the results of, at least for the OPI share, that the very bottom teams were definitely below the median. But if I could ever figure out how to move this circle, I will one day. It would be easier for you to see that the Spurs actually have a little outlier slash anomaly here, that the duo DPI share is actually over 25%, which is in the green, yet they are, as we said on the last slide, next to last. So there's definitely some other things going on that are to be investigated later. Moving on, I also wanted to represent this graphically in some other ways, because representing in different ways is how I kind of figure out if there might be some other variable within the current realm that we can look at. So this pretty much confirms that there is no consistent pattern. So we've got the orange bars representing the OPI share, and this team data is in order of 1 through 8 playoff seed. So playoff seed number 1, if the share was very important, we should see a downward trend, with the Thunder having a really high share and then a clear downward trend to the last seed having a low share. And that's actually not happening at all. It's kind of all over the map. And we've got the same trend with the green line, which is the DPI share. Now, one thing that did stand out to me is that some of these teams here in the middle have quite a big difference. And maybe that represents that the key duo is performing well on offense, but that the defense is lacking, and that's one reason they're a low seed. But then again, the Thunder, which is the number 1 team, also had a big difference. So looks like there's no real clear pattern, but just to kind of do one more visual, I actually calculated the difference and plotted that. So we've got here. So this is the wide difference. Again, we've got just the line graph. So there seems to be a wide difference here for seeds 4 through 7, but there's also a wide difference from 1 and 2, confirmed by what we saw in the last graph. And the final check, doing a scatter plot, is the regular season win percentage here on the axis, which also correlates with the highest playoff seed. The highest playoff seed would be up here. And then we've got the difference, which is OPI minus DPI. That's why there are some negatives, because there were 2 teams, as you can see, the 2 dots, where the DPI was actually higher. So with both the positive and negative, still no real pattern, just as we saw. I mean, if you were to kind of draw a best fit trend line through this, it would pretty much be a straight line. So that means there's other variables that we're going to investigate later that should be more explanatory, unlike the Eastern Conference, where the OPI and DPI shares seem to make a difference in predicting the regular season record. So phase 2 analysis plan. Originally, I was going to do phase 2 for the Eastern Conference before doing this analysis for the Western Conference. But I decided that we need to get this Western Conference out because the playoffs are almost over. And then phase 2, I can do for each conference and then combined, including all the variables. So the purpose of phase 2 will be to incorporate other things that will be affecting the win percentage and or playoff seed. And we'll do something called multivariate regression, which is a fancy way of saying we are going to come up with a mathematical equation that gives a weight to different variables. So we'll expect when we run the Eastern Conference that the duo OPI and DPI share will have weights that'll be higher than those for the Western Conference. So to kind of figure out what else is going on, my first three variables that I'm going to add in are going to be the top 10 free throw percentage, field goal percentage, and 3-point percentage. So I call these my consistency variables. And these are for only the top 10 players, including the duo. And the top 10 is ranked by the minutes per game. And I did this because, you can easily see, oh, what is the team's average free throw percentage? I mean, that's quoted by analysts all the time. But I just want to look at the top 10, which is going to be the very important supporting cast that's affecting most of the record. So continued, we already talked about how the key duos will prove to have less of an effect for the Western Conference. And later, when I add more variables, because we can add as many as we want with multivariate regression, one that I'm interested in is the age of the top 10. Now, will age of the top 10 have a negative or positive effect on the regular season record? Remains to be seen. Now, also, I'll add how many games were missed by key duo players. That will pretty obviously have a negative impact, but it's a matter of how much. That's what this regression analysis is going to tell us. And because we're using shares and per game data, we'll be able to compare with previous seasons and more importantly with historic key duos, because that's what's most interesting. And one of the iconic duos of the past that I would definitely like to study is the jazz duo of John Stockton and Karl Malone. So because we've used the share and the per game data, we can make comparisons with today's duos, and I look forward to seeing what that's going to show. The Eastern Conference presentation can be viewed on my YouTube channel, and a shout out to basketball-reference.com, where I gather all my data for free. Thank you, Basketball Reference. And I will see y'all next time.